wanted to talk about self-esteem. I have to increase yours. In the way that I grew up, I didn't develop just self-esteem. I didn't have even a self to develop esteem around, because I didn't even know who I was. I hadn't developed like this sort of a healthy image of myself to be able to even have, you know, some esteem to put towards it, you know. Everything was propped up in a way that it was always about my mum and who she was, and I was an extension of her, but not really my own person. And that really kind of skews the way you view life and view yourself and move through life, you know. I was also severely abused, so that like played a huge part into it. But I guess what I want to talk about is how to get out of it, or how to develop a sense of self and develop a healthy self-esteem. When I started therapy, I had to deal with a lot of the things that I hadn't dealt with. A lot of people think like that maybe therapy is about, you know, helping you reach certain goals. But for me, it was like a lot of the baggage that I had been carrying around with me, I had to learn to put it down, you know. And I carried, not only did I carry not a healthy sense of self, but I also carried a very unhealthy image of myself. I believed that I was responsible for like certain things that had happened to me, directly or indirectly. Sometimes I had been told that I was, so it was quite hard, even about things like that could logically not even possibly be my responsibility or my fault, but somehow I had carried all that, like, you know, within myself. And that's something, so I wasn't even starting from zero, I was starting from like a million, you know. And that's hard to think that you're responsible for other people's decisions and behaviors and, you know, whatever. I had carried that from childhood, that as a child I believed that I was responsible for what other adults said, did, how they behaved. So first of all, I think it's very important to understand that, to unpack a lot of the things that are really holding you back, so that you can move forward in a, you know, in a brand new way. But that takes time. That really took time. And so first of all, I had to unpack a lot of these things. And second of all, I kept saying in my therapy sessions, I was like, I don't know who I am, I don't know who I am. I don't think you discover who you are. I think you already, it's about removing the things that are in the way, and at the same time building yourself. You are allowed to self-determine, you are allowed to change your mind, you're allowed to recreate yourself, you're allowed to start over, you're allowed to experiment, you're allowed to, you know, it's about not releasing a lot of the things that you're holding tight, and also kind of learning to move through life in a more soft way without over-identifying with the things that you like or the mistakes that you make, or, you know, whatever. So it's a lot of that process. I was also, if you grew up in the same way that I did, I was also told I was a lot of things. So I was holding on to other people's labels about me. Some labels hurt, that I was lazy, and I continually, for example, looked for examples that I wasn't lazy, yet engaged in some behavior that I would qualify as lazy. So these two things are happening at the same time, that you feel like you can never find yourself. You can never understand what it is, because there's always things that are holding you back. And you're constantly kind of fighting against yourself, against others, against your past, against your future, against your present. Like, you're just like in a lot of conflict, internal conflict. And it's hard when there's a lot of conflict to see what's already there. So for me, it was about dealing with that conflict and letting go of a lot of people. A lot of these people I didn't let go completely and totally, and to this day, a lot of the people that I let go of, I continue to talk now too. But temporarily, I needed some relief, you know, when there was a lot of things. I needed quiet, and that's what essentially happened, is that I became very quiet. I let go of a lot of things to kind of, in some way, I think psychologically, to stabilize my life. It did make me lonely. It did make me feel like I was misunderstood, which had been a topic. It made me feel I wasn't doing very much, but I think internally, psychologically, I was processing a lot of things that were quite difficult. But I had to let go a lot of the things that I felt I wasn't doing for myself. Or I didn't, sometimes it was things that I didn't know who I was doing it for, or why I was doing it. So like going to the gym or like working out, I was like, am I doing this for me because I love my body, or am I trying to in some way punish or in some way try to make me be something that I'm not, you know? So I had to let go of a lot of these behaviors, but you know, you don't live in a vacuum, so things continue to kind of happen. I continued to talk to neighbors. I continued sometimes to spiral in these conversations because I didn't feel comfortable within myself. When you're not comfortable within yourself is the worst experience for yourself, but I think it's also quite devastating for people around you. So all these, like, you know, the not that it's a reason to do it, but truly people that are aligned within themselves will shine in a way that is so special. So, and sometimes that path is not straightforward. I was talking today to my friend. Today's my birthday. I was talking to my friend today, and she had reminded me in an episode that had lasted a long time, where she said that I was quite depressed and she felt like, you know, I wasn't doing very much, which is kind of what I'm talking about. And she said that she couldn't understand. She said, but you were not like this. I don't understand why you're like, you know, you were so outgoing. You need to go out more. You need to do more things. And I remember that I had huge resistance at that point. I also didn't like to be told that I should be doing something because I was like, I don't know. I feel it in my soul. Yes, I was different, but I also knew that the Julie that I had left was not also totally comfortable for me, you know? So it was like, I needed, like, it was a transition, and that transition was not comfortable for her, it was not comfortable for me. And for a long time there, we had to stop talking because she just couldn't accept it, and I was tired of explaining it and feeling like I had to justify myself. But we talked today, and we're amazing friends, and we've been friends for a long time, so it's fine. But all transitions are not going to be comfortable. There were days that I didn't want, days, months, weeks, I didn't want to be alive. I didn't want to die, but I just didn't know how to live. And I felt like I was living through inertia. But you have to understand that the way I grew up kind of was like, it was a transition period. And that transition period is extremely difficult, but it is necessary. After I had, and I was going through therapy all the same time. After that, I started to pay attention to how my body was feeling. That's it. Pay attention. When I see someone, how do I feel? When I talk to someone, how do I feel? When I talk about certain things, how do I feel? When I talk about, like, when I do certain things, how do I feel? How do I feel? How do I feel in this moment? And letting my body dictate the boundaries that I had to then have the guts to put up and respect. Even sometimes it wasn't the other people, but sometimes it was topics that I couldn't talk with a particular person about. And that is something that takes self-discipline to be like, I'm not gonna go there. This person is not a bad person. They do not wish me harm. They do not, you know, whatever, but it's just not the topic that I can engage in with this person. Realizing the things, my own boundaries and respect for myself, that also took a long time. I couldn't accept people because I was like, why can't people be like this? Why can't people be like that? But in reality, people are people. People are whoever they are. It's for us to respect ourselves and respect others and understand that you're not going to see eye to eye all the time. And it's for you to respect your own comfort level with people, with topics, with things, like whatever it is. And to take care of yourself, because we also want other people to take care of us. We want other people to make things more comfortable for us, to avoid certain topics, to avoid doing certain things. But in reality, it's our job to do that. It's not other people's job to make us comfortable. It's other people's job to make themselves comfortable, to give themselves the life that they want. And it's equally our responsibility to do that. So I had to really go through that of understanding how other people or how other things made me feel, and adjust myself, the conversation, learn to navigate these things, you know. And also, I think I was fighting a lot against my own nature. I'm quite a fiery person. I'm an Aries. I'm quite a spontaneous, just honest, earnest, quite brash person. And that is my nature. I cannot fight against my nature. And I was trying to put myself into this sort of carcan where I had to be quite fake, you know, because I couldn't be honest. So I decided to then be fake. But actually, honesty is not all or nothing. Sometimes you can't say, it's not contextually appropriate to say everything. That's not honesty. Honesty is being honest with yourself about, I feel like this or I think like this, and what am I gonna do about it? Not try to put it on other people to do. And but also understand that, because I would overthink a lot the conversations that I would have, and understand that I cannot both be myself, which is this spontaneous person that likes to communicate and actually likes people, and at the same time hate myself for saying some stuff maybe not in the perfect way, or saying some stuff that I didn't really like. And I was like, I can't do both. I can't both want to be spontaneous and yet berate myself for being spontaneous, you know. It's sometimes it is gonna be a miss, and can I be big enough to hold that within me, to hold that dichotomy, to hold that thing that maybe it's not always comfortable, and to maybe trust that people are discerning. Because do I like everything within my friends? No. But am I able to be discerning? Am I able to understand that this thing is not all encompassing of one person? Can I have even things that I strongly dislike, but I appreciate the person? Yes. So why can't others be like that? And maybe not everybody is, but, you know, trust that people are discerning, and trust that spontaneity will win, you know, because yes, it's part that mishap happened, because it is, you know, live and it's gonna happen, you know, and it's okay. I'm gonna be brave enough to hold it all within me. So that was kind of like another pivotal moment where I started to pay attention to how I was feeling, and sort of starting to accept, you know, that I was who I was, and I couldn't possibly make myself something else, or I was making myself sick trying to be something else, you know. I would have these moments of like connection with people, which I relished, but then I would say something that didn't exactly land in the way that I thought it would, and I would kind of go back inside my shell. And it's like, it's okay. People are also allowed to have their reaction, and they can't, you know, it's like you want, like, I wanted like perfect safety while talking to somebody else, but that doesn't exist. It's not possible. We take risks. Sometimes they pay, sometimes they don't. And it's about like kind of gaining a little bit of traction within myself that sort of helped me to be like, it's okay, that's who I am, and sort of working on accepting and also trusting my own body, you know, to both learn to pay attention to it and let it go, you know. Yeah, I mean, that's it. that's basically it. Yeah, but another part, I think, was developing. I was punished. My exploration was punished. You know, I wasn't free to do a lot of the things. Like, if I were to choose a sport when I was in childhood, it had to be like, you know, serious, and I couldn't change. Like, we were tight on money, so it was really hard to kind of explore freely, right? But I was also kind of punished for a lot of the things that I did, that I engaged in. And so one of the things that I highly recommend is to have things that are uniquely yours. For example, I discovered gardening. And gardening for me, because there is no like, it wasn't something that I did when I was younger. It wasn't like, it wasn't kind of polluted by a lot of the, you know, little anxieties and some of the earlier dynamics that I had. It was completely free. I could be, you know, there was no, I could explore, I could be myself, I could try things, it wasn't exactly, like, it still played into a larger part of like who I was and how it was articulating within me. For example, I cried. I was panicking when I was buying seeds, like flower seeds, because I wanted a vegetable garden, because I felt like that was proper, right? Like, because it was like food and that was okay. But kind of like things that were more, you know, just for fun, like flowers, I felt like that wasn't okay, you know. So I had a hard time with things that are not strictly necessary because there was a lack of resource, you know. But it was largely free for me to experiment and try and do different things, and it was kind of free. Home design was the same. Furniture and, like, you know, and decorating was like really my free space, because I had never, no one had ever said anything sort of about that. I didn't grow up in this way, so it was like free. So find pockets of freedom for yourself where you can develop and hone your skills and get confidence within yourself. You will, you know, how do I like this? How do I like this? Like, try different things. And it's really important to have that freedom, you know, of buying yourself flowers and like figuring out like, oh, do I like this arrangement? Do I like this arrangement? Do I prefer to do it like this or like that? And just try different things, you know. Sometimes, like, when you grow up in a kind of the household where you're not free to be yourself, you feel really scared of every little thing that you will do, that you will feel like even if you buy like a €5 flowers, that you feel like it's really dangerous. And so, and your nervous system thinks it's dangerous. So it's important, I think, to start really slow and to just start little by little, you know. Do little things that like make you happy, and I think over time it does compound to bring about an image of yourself that you start to like, you know, that you're like, wow, this looks nice, I did this. I'm sitting in my office, I'm looking at my desk that I put together, like some branches and stuff, and I'm like, I like it, I did it, and it was all from my mind and my creative self, and that's really beautiful. You know, I chose this lamp that is hanging in the office, I chose these curtains, and slowly it gave me confidence within myself to be like, oh, I like how this looks, I like this. And that's probably all the advice that I have. Deal with your past, pay attention to your body, do the things that you like, and start small. And little by little, you will develop confidence within yourself, and you will build a sense of self. You will understand. I also recommend having a creative outlet. Making YouTube videos is one of mine, but I also write extensively, both like to publish, but also in my journal. That sort of helps, you know, to introspect a lot and to sort of understand what's happening within me. And so having a creative outlet is super important. But it doesn't have to be writing or painting, or gardening is its own creativity. Like, there's many things that are creative avenue that don't directly look creative. Like, engineering can be creative, to write code can be creative, I imagine. I don't know, but I think there's many things that, like, creativity, we used to define it in quite thin kind of brackets. Like, do you dance, do you write, do you know, make movies or whatever. But I think there's a broad, creativity, it can be in everything. I remember watching someone pouring concrete. Like, I remember a couple of instances of like pouring concrete and seeing how many nuances are in concrete. You think it's concrete, it's making a slab of concrete, but there's so many nuances in that and making it well. So there's learning opportunities and creativity opportunities in everything. And it's about engaging, you know, in cleaning. There's like huge creativity in cleaning. How do you clean different surfaces, whatever. You get my point. Creativity is everywhere. And yeah, and slowly you will develop a sense of self that you're proud of and that no one can take away from you. Because if you grew up in the same way that I did for a long time, I didn't believe I was worthy of good things. It's a bit hard to talk about, but because it's not that it's hard to talk about, it's hard to pinpoint exactly what it is. Because people weren't just mean to me, but the things that they said somehow always outweighed everything else. The bad things that they said would always outweigh everything else. Like, I would punish myself for, like, you know, for things. And I would trust, even if they said 9 times that I was like amazing, I would believe the one time that they said I was a piece of shit. It's a whole separate discussion, but it's really hard when you're going through life looking for proof that you are either a piece of shit or you're not a piece of shit. Like, you're always relating to that one comment, you know, to the negative thing, you know. It's really, really hard. Yeah. Maybe it brought me down a bit. I think that's it. It's my birthday. I'm drinking coffee. I've given up caffeine lately, but today's my birthday. I wanted to enjoy. That's it. Little by little, do things that make you feel better and go towards people that make you feel better. And if you don't have anyone, know that you have yourself. And I know because I was there, it doesn't feel like we have ourselves, right? Because we don't even know who we are. But you're not alone. You're not alone because I'm here, but you're also not alone because you have yourself. And you can't be alone. Because you have you. But also, maybe knowing that other people are going through that, like, I know that it helps, you know, it helps. It helped me to know that I wasn't alone, that there were many other people. Like, the human experience is the same across the board. It articulates slightly differently from person to person, and, you know, and things get picked up in a different way from the way we grew up, but it's the same. It always distills to the same things. We all want the same thing. We all don't want the same thing. And yeah. So yeah. Trust yourself. And go slow. You'll get there.